All right, for this last part, there's just one added little bit here that I was going to show you. This sine squared plus cosine squared. You do have this on homework, and we will be using this a little bit later in the month. So you have these angles and degrees. You are going to do exactly what you did in day 2. So these are not over 360, and they are not negative. So you don't need to find the coterminal angles. Basically, we're going to go back to what we did on day 2. So the first step on day 2 was to find which quadrant it belongs to. So 240, we know that that's quadrant 3. Then we want to find the sines. So for the sines, we're using our all students take calculus, and we're in quadrant 3. So we know only tangent will be positive, so sine will be negative and cosine will be negative. And we're not actually finding tangent this time, we're just finding sine, cosine, and then we're doing this piece here, which I will show you how that goes. And then the last step is to find the reference angle. So to find the reference angle, since we're in quadrant 3, if we use our note card for a reference angle, quadrant 3 says you're going to do theta minus 180. So I'm going to do 240 minus 180. And that's going to give me 60 degrees. 60 degrees now, I go to my chart for quadrant 1, 60 degrees. Cosine is 1/2, sine is rad 3/2. So we're going to do sine, and again, make sure you use the original angle. And we said this was radical 3/2 and it's negative. And then cosine of 240 degrees, also negative, negative 1/2. And then this new part that we haven't ever done before is where you're going to take the sine of this 240 degrees. You're going to square that answer. So the answer that we got here, we're going to plug into here. And you're going to add that to the cosine of 240 degrees. And you're going to square that answer. So you want to do this part first, and then basically you're squaring this, and you're squaring this, and then you're going to tell me what you get. So 240 for sine, this was a negative radical 3/2, but I'm going to square it. Please make sure you square it. Then the negative 1/2, but like we said, we're going to square it. When you square a negative, it becomes positive, so it's gone. Rad 3 and rad 3 is just 3. 2 times 2 is 4, so this whole thing gives me a 3/4 plus negative's gone. 1 times 1 is still 1. 2 times 2 is 4. Common denominators, you get 4/4, which is just 1. So the value for my sine squared plus cosine squared is equal to 1. Please make sure you show the work on this. They're always going to equal 1. This is one of our trig identities that we will work on a little bit later, but please make sure you're plugging this in and making sure that you're getting 1 each time. If you're not getting 1, you're doing something wrong. So if you want to go ahead and pause the video, we have 2 more examples. I'm going to go through them rather quickly. So you have 315 degrees and then you have 150 degrees. I'm just going to go through and write in what the answer should be. Please remember, if you ever have any questions, that you can message me on Edsby. I'm there between 7:30 and 8:30 and 1:30 and 2:30. I'm checking it multiple times a day, but 7:30 to 8:30, there's not a lot of traffic. So if you need help, or 1:30 to 2:30 is pretty nice as well. So if you need any assistance, I am on there sitting at my computer staring at it. So please, if you have a question on anything, let me know. Math is a little bit tricky when you have to type it, but you can always send me a picture and we'll work through it. All right, here we go. So quadrant 4. In quadrant 4, sine has a value of negative, cosine has a value of positive. I find the reference angle, 360 minus 315 is going to give me a 45 degrees. Sine of 315 degrees is going to be negative radical 2/2. That's a negative, by the way, it got really close. Cosine of 315 degrees is going to be positive rad 2/2. Then we're going to take and square these values. So you're going to take your, I'm just going to write it out, negative rad 2/2 squared plus rad 2 over 2 squared. This will give you positive, rad 2 is just 2. 2 times 2, 4. Rad 2 times rad 2 is just 2. So you end up with a 1. So your sine squared plus your cosine squared is equal to 1. All right, last one. 150 degrees. That's in quadrant 2. The signs for quadrant 2 is your sine will have a value of positive, your cosine will have a negative value. Your reference angle is 180 minus 150, which is just a 30-degree angle. Sine of 150 degrees is going to be, so we look back at the 30, will be a 1/2. Cosine of 150 degrees is negative rad 3 over 2. So remember in quadrant 1, it's not negative, but because we're in quadrant 2, cosine will take a negative value. And then sine squared plus cosine squared. So 1/2 squared plus a negative rad 3 over 2 squared. This will give me a 1/4. Rad 3 and rad 3 is just 3. 2 times 2 is 4. So again, I'm getting a 1. So my sine squared plus my cosine squared equals 1. Again, on homework, you must show this work here. Make sure you show this work on homework. Even though I've told you the answer is supposed to be 1, you still need to prove it. Have a great day.